Rose is involved in a motorbike accident. She is rushed to the nearest hospital where she undergoes experimental surgery and as a consequence develops a weird mutated organ, a kind of stinger beneath her armpit through which she drinks people's blood. She flees the hospital, unaware that those she feeds off of become rabid, attacking others and in so doing spreading the virus. The government tries to control the epidemic, declaring martial law, while Rose's boyfriend desperately tries to track her down before it's too late. When Canadian auteur David Cronenberg first came onto the scene, he was likened to other genre luminaries such as Tobe Hooper and George Romero for low-budget exploitation horror flicks that contain deeper social and political subtexts. And Rabid from 1977 is a fine example, which owes a certain debt to Romero's The Crazies. This surrealist vampire viral epidemic B-movie begins with a plastic surgery clinic that's setting up a kind of franchise resort.
I just sure as hell don't want to become the Colonel Sanders of plastic surgery.
This neatly sets up the idea of bodily alteration and transformation, classic Cronenberg concerns. Rose unwittingly undergoes the experimental surgery that sets off the chain of horrors to follow, but this isn't a Frankenstein morality tale. The surgeon is utterly benevolent in his intent. That's not to say he doesn't get his comeuppance, he does, only that there is no sense that he is paying for any wrongdoing. In fact, throughout, the film is completely non-judgmental. Despite all the carnage, there were no incidental characters set up to be killed because they are in some way deserving of punishment, as is common in horror movies. For all the film's bleak nihilism, it is not without a genuine sense of humanity. Well, for the most part at least. There is an exception. An attempted rapist becomes one of Rose's first victims. She doesn't feed off of him, however. In fact, he's the only one of her victims she doesn't feed off of. Once Rose's mutation has manifested, together with her need for human blood, the film's narrative splits into two distinct paths, that of Rose herself and her bloodlust, and the spread of the virus. This thread plays out as the more conventional strand, depicting the escalating panic and chaos through a series of horror vignettes. It is here that the comparison to The Crazies is most notable. Like something from a disaster movie, we get a nice balance of creeping tension and shock sequences as the disease spreads wider with each successive attack, and there's also some fairly elaborate stunt work for a film with such a limited budget, not to mention a streak of black humour.
Okay, Jack, that's another.
And Cronenberg certainly knows how to play on modern anxieties. A surgery sequence, for example, where the surgeon has become infected and will become rabid at any moment, is a quintessential scene of modernist horror. Not to mention the whole premise of the epidemic in a society obsessed with health scares and paranoid about infection.
Not just a question of swine flu or something like that. We have already several deaths on our hands in this one small area alone, and the main problem is we don't know what we're up against.
The film may have been made over 30 years ago, but its themes and concerns at least haven't dated in the slightest. The other narrative strand focuses on Rose. The horror on show here is far more intimate and insidious, as Cronenberg explores what would quickly come to be known as one of his signatures, a strong sense of body horror. Though the mutation is vampiric in nature, it has none of the standard trappings. The feeding scenes are deeply sexualized, as is fairly common in vampire myth, but Cronenberg subverts traditional imagery, effectively making it utterly his own unique vision, and allowing him to play around with deeply unsettling ideas and visuals. Part surrealism, the blending of the fantastical with visual symbolism, Rose feeds through a mutated organ, sucking blood through a phallic stinger, a twisted metaphor made flesh, her body literally transformed into a sexual disease that subverts and pollutes even as it relentlessly consumes. Whereas the infected rabid are more akin to zombies, mindless and driven purely by violent impulse, Rose retains the semblance of health and reason, her violent impulse only coming to light when she feeds. The film could be misconstrued as a misogynistic fear of female sexuality, a warning against predatory women, or against promiscuity. Rose goes about trawling for men to prey upon, happily oblivious of the chaos wrought in her wake. But that's too simplistic and reductive an interpretation, and Rose is as much a victim of her mutation as anyone else. It's also an argument that utterly fails to appreciate Cronenberg's weird fascination with the bizarre convolutions of the flesh and the note of celebration of renegade sexuality. Her mutation is an amalgamation of male and female flesh, and Rose becomes a physical manifestation of the disease itself. Cronenberg is quoted as saying his films should be viewed from the point of view of the disease as much as from the characters. In Rabid, Rose's character is kept deliberately ambiguous. She is little more than a metaphor herself, barely fleshed out, nor do we see anything of her prior to the mutation. There is no comparison between what she was and what she has become, as would be a necessary convention in a standard horror film. She becomes merely the carrier, indicative of Cronenberg's viewpoint that the disease is as prevalent as the character. She takes on the parasitic aspects necessary to fulfill the needs of the disease. It dictates her behaviour, overcoming her conventional morality, just as the mutation has modified and overcome her flesh.
How long have you been conscious, Rose? Do you know?
A couple of days.
Do you feel weak?
I feel strong. I feel very strong.
Rita tells me you wouldn't let her attach it to your intravenous nutrient bottles. Why?
I don't need them. They make me feel sick.
I don't understand. They've got to be your only source of food.
They're not. They haven't been for a couple of days. Not since that man.
Man? What are you talking about?
I'll show you.
But it's an uncomfortable synergy, and ultimately a tragic one. Rose rejects the possibility that her mutation and the epidemic are related, a state of denial so deep that she is prepared to risk her own life rather than face the truth, leading to a final, deadly experiment that is akin to suicide. Though tempting to attribute the decision to cast porn star Marilyn Chambers is some sort of sly commentary in itself, the truth is the choice was a practical one, suggested by producer Ivan Reitman. Cronenberg originally wanted Sissy Spacek, having been impressed by her performance in Badlands, but was vetoed. Meanwhile, Carrie was released, turning her into a genre sensation overnight. The fact that a poster of Carrie can be seen in one scene could in itself be read as a commentary by Cronenberg. Watching Rabid today, it may well be cheap and dated in look and feel, but it's no less topical now than it was on its release. Its unconventional concerns, Cronenberg's ongoing fascination with disease as a form of bodily mutation, together with its deeply original imagery, ensure that this film still retains its ability to confront and disturb to this day.